shared immediately by the Henry Sue fan club. So, hey, Facebook Live. We are live with Henry Sue. We're going to talk about self-driving vehicles. This is going to be awesome. So I'm about to go live here on the recording, and I just can't wait. And we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Henry Sue. Henry, are you ready to talk?
Yes, I am.
Henry Sue is a business analyst interested in automation and its impact on the future of work. His experience includes operations research at a Sequoia capital-backed startup developing self-driving semi-trucks in Silicon Valley. Henry Sue, welcome to the talk.
Happy to be here.
So your talk is called The Self-Driving Revolution, and this is just a topic that continues to, pun intended, pick up steam and go faster and faster. I am just really thrilled to be talking with anybody that's at the forefront of this. And you mentioned a hierarchy, like there's a level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to level 5 of self-driving automobiles. So that was a new classification for me. Please, Henry, take us behind the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the objective of this talk was ultimately to convince the audience that self-driving is the future and it's going to bring immense benefit to us. And so I think that people should get behind the idea. And as you mentioned, I begin first by defining what autonomous vehicles are, because I think that this is a pretty nebulous concept for a lot. And ultimately, it breaks down into, I guess, 6 levels of autonomy from L0 through to level 5. But the ones that I talk about are level 1 through 5, 1 being some basic driver assistance, up to level 5, meaning a fully autonomous vehicle with absolutely no steering wheel, no controls, no anything. So the person doesn't have any control over this vehicle. And I try to focus my talk mostly on level 4 and 5 vehicles, which I think ultimately provide the greatest benefit to society when the person can be completely disengaged from the vehicle. And so after defining the levels of autonomy, I explain self-driving within the context of other major trends that are influencing the automobile industry. These include electrification from companies like Tesla. This includes ride sharing, such as Uber. And this also includes connectivity, which is a new trend in which vehicles can begin to communicate with one another and begin to be more digitized and provide a more personalized experience for drivers. And I explained that self-driving is important because it amplifies these several trends that are reshaping the automotive industry. Then I get into some of the broader benefits of self-driving at a social level, such as their ability to save lives, how they're more environmentally friendly than existing vehicles, and ultimately how it's going to reshape many industries, especially in transport, such as in mining or in freight trucking, but also across the board into areas like consumer robotics, where there's a lot of tie-in between the technology in self-driving and those other industries. Finally, I mentioned a couple of the drawbacks of self-driving, such as some of the ethical dilemmas that we need to solve, issues of cybersecurity, and also the issue of displaced jobs. But the conclusion is that despite these drawbacks, I think the benefits of self-driving are absolutely immense. And for that reason, society should definitely get behind a self-driving future.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to have a link to Henry's talk in the show notes, and I'll let you know where you can go to get that a little bit later in the broadcast. But man, how cool. And just like anything else, there are so many systems. We have so much complexity right now. And really, it's almost like we're in a really bad pinch right now. So the best way forward is just to really solve these issues, maybe get some of the extra cooks in the kitchen or drivers behind the wheel out of the way and figure out how to solve some of these problems on a broader level. I was watching some video. I don't know if it was really your talk or something else I saw, but it was this concept of latency. And I just remembered my father always so annoyed, and now me annoyed taking after my dad in a traffic jam thinking, why can't everybody just go the same speed all the time? And that is basically the concept of latency, that we all have to have that microsecond or centisecond or half second delay so that we don't slam into somebody and create an even bigger accident. But this thing was just showing that particular concept. I know there must be hundreds and hundreds of those types of issues to solve. Henry, let's go a little farther back. When did this start for you? How is this something that you kind of stumbled on, or did you have a little bit of a track to get where you are?
Yeah, if we go to the very nexus of this, I'd have to rewind to back in 2008 when I was a grade 8 student, and I joined my junior high robotics club, and we competed in the First Tech Challenge robotics competition. And part of this competition involved building a robot that would transport hockey pucks into a central goal. And of the 2.5 minutes of gameplay, the first 30 seconds were autonomous. So the robot had to move on its own and move around the field on its own. And so I guess that was my first exposure to presumably an autonomous vehicle. Um, One of my best friends was also a member of that team. And just a couple years ago, he dropped out of school in Waterloo to begin a self driving golf cart company at the time. He went down to Silicon Valley and worked, attended Y Combinator, and eventually this became a self-driving truck company that he currently runs. And that's the company that I worked at over the summer. And so it was ultimately through him that this interest in me sparked. And he is looking at one specific application of self-driving vehicles, that of trucking, which has immense economic potential. But overall, I think I found the entire industry to be very interesting in terms of the broad range of applications that self-driving vehicles could have, from freight trucks to mining haul trucks, down to passenger vehicles, down to ride-sharing applications. And I think the scope really expands far beyond that, which is why I dubbed this the self-driving revolution, because I think it's completely going to revolutionize so many aspects of society. But that's where this interest sparked, and ultimately how it's carried through to today.
Cool. Well, I know I've got a friend of mine locally who works for AAA, and about a year and a half ago, he comes back from some conference, and he is like the evangelist for the self-driving revolution. And I'm like, what in the heck are you talking about? And then it all started leaking out, in various ways. I would see the signs, not the least of which was, I think, when was it? It was about a year ago, maybe, that Elon Musk came out with his plan for the new Tesla, and including the self-driving semi trucks. And I watched that presentation. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So my question to you at this point, speaking of Elon Musk, I mean, there's a little bit of drama going on. I want to honor the guy and his vision, and just honor his humanity, because he's been doing so much for so long, working day and night for a better future for all of us. So I don't even want to talk about that. But what I do want to ask you is, maybe a little bit of drama. Are there other figures out there besides, Elon Musk, or is he kind of the figurehead and it all rises and falls with him? Or, is there a future in this? Are there other standard bearers that maybe we haven't seen yet that are picking up and running behind the scenes to push these things forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Elon Musk is obviously the poster child in some ways, but I'd say that there are several major companies all working to solve the self-driving problem, both from a tech perspective as well as from an automotive perspective. So within the tech space, we have Tesla, we have Waymo, which is a subsidiary of Google. We have Apple that's working on their own version of this car. So we have several players who've taken a jump start into this space. And then from an automobile perspective, there are several automotive companies working on vehicles such as Ford, Audi. Pretty much all the major manufacturers are moving in this direction. And so we see a convergence here of tech and automobiles, and not necessarily individual people driving the efforts, but huge companies with massive talent pools pushing this agenda forward.
So it really is a convergence then. So the decisions have been made behind the doors. It's not like the electric car documentary where someone took the proprietary stuff 20 years ago and burned it or took it. I mean, I remember watching some documentary, and it was so horrible and so corrupt what they did with this technology, and we could all be driving electric cars right now. I don't know if you know that specific one or not, Henry, but it's good to know that they realize if we don't adapt, we're going to be like Blockbuster Video or what any of the other brands that I could name, Kodak camera or whatever. It sounds like the industry is already past that point, and that's a good thing. What's your final wrap up on, at least on the industry and your part in it?
Yeah, so I think the industry definitely is at the tipping point, and we can see that because huge players have been gaining momentum, but then there's a lot of activity within the startup space too, with dozens of companies building self-driving cars, a couple of building self-driving trucks. So ultimately, we see momentum shifting in this direction, and I think where it's most obvious is that it's ultimately feeding upwards towards policy, where entire governments, state governments are becoming more receptive to the idea of self-driving and beginning to propose legislation that allows an environment conducive to testing of self-driving vehicles. And so I think for all those reasons, the industry has passed its tipping point, and now it's just a matter of time for us to roll these vehicles out onto the road.
All right, Talk Universe. We've been talking to Henry Hsu. His talk is called The Self-Driving Revolution. It's all about apparently not 5, but 6 levels of automation. And you're going to want to check that out. But we're going to pivot to you first in just a moment for the Blitz Round. And we're back with Henry Hsu. It is time for the Blitz Round, in which I'm going to ask Henry a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Are you ready, Henry?
Yeah, absolutely.
First off, were you invited to speak, or did you apply?
So I applied for this talk. It was hosted by the University of Alberta, and I was actually a student at the time. And so I definitely heard about it through my classmates who are part of the organizing team. But I did throw in my own application, and that was run independently by myself.
Well, just like the rest of us, Talk Universe. Isn't that great? All right, second question. Henry, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
Interesting. And so I think usually I'd be more of a blender, perhaps even a bit of an improviser when I'm giving talks. But with the structure of the TED Talk, I had to fit the talk under a certain time limit. And so I wanted to ensure that every sentence I said made a profound impact. And for that reason, I essentially memorized the script for this TED Talk.
So how did that play for you? Were you comfortable? Kind of were you able to speak from the heart? Were you feeling like you were kind of reciting it a little bit? It's a very technical talk, but it's also a great talk. How was that experience for you?
Well, I thought it was pretty good. I think once I get very familiar with the script down to memorizing it, I can then pull back and give myself a bit more leeway and make it sound more natural. And so I felt even though I memorized it, it didn't come across as robotic, which is ultimately what I was aiming for.
Yeah, well, and that's whenever I have an actor or anyone in television production or anything like that, they always memorize that. When I ask them that question, they're always saying, "I'm a memorizer," but they internalize it and they speak from the heart. Congratulations, Henry, the scientist was able to do the same thing just like an acting pro. So awesome, good on you. So you walk out on stage. Did you have nerves? Were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
Certainly, it was my first talk of a scale of that nature, but I do have a fair amount of experience speaking prior to this event, also through debate competitions and whatnot. And so I felt pretty at ease on stage. And I think there might have been some initial nerves, but as soon as I started getting talking, those nerves instantly turned into excitement.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
So I think a good tip is getting your talk out and speaking in front of friends, speaking in front of family, getting used to being judged on stage and getting them to judge you for not only what you're saying, but how you're saying it, what your body language is like, and getting all this feedback so that you're very comfortable doing the same thing in front of not 3, but 300 people.
Yeah. Well, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
So right before my talk was actually an entertainment intermission, and they had a student who was in my class in chemical engineering, and he went up and performed slam poetry in front of the audience. And this isn't, I never knew that he had this ability, but it was absolutely amazing. And it was pretty tough for my talk to follow that up, actually.
Tough act to follow. That's a real consideration. They didn't have like an MC or anyone to kind of rebalance the energy of the room, or they
Oh,
just
there was
introduced
an
you.
MC in between, but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of excitement after that.
Okay. Well, hey, it doesn't hurt.
Not at all.
Doesn't hurt. It could have been a low energy or a somber energy or crazy energy. I mean, there are a lot of different kinds of energy. Hey, everybody, we've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Henry Sue. His talk is called The Self-Driving Revolution. If you want to watch that talk, I would recommend that you watch it. Go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We will have the link to that talk, as well as we will have a link to help you get in touch with Henry on his LinkedIn profile. We'll have another link right in there. And in a moment, we're going to be right back to Henry Sue for the final word of advice. And we're back with the final word of advice to Talk Universe from Henry Sue.
Great. So this is more a piece of life advice, I think, but a very profound idea that I heard through other podcasts and through people that I'm close with is you are the average of the 5 people who are closest to you. And so what this means is that you should really be deliberate on who you're spending your time with, be it your family, your closest friends, your role models. And I find that this has ultimately pushed me through life a lot, where a lot of the things that I've gotten into, including public speaking, including robotics, I got into these things because I had a friend who was extremely passionate about it. And he was a close friend, and therefore he brought me into it as well. And eventually I discovered my own passion in these things. And so I think it's super important to reach out to the people who inspire you and who are your role models, and to get close to these people, because their energy is contagious. It will rub off onto you. And I think ultimately that's how we as an entire community are able to improve ourselves.
Well, Henry Sue, thank you so much for taking some time and carving out your schedule to be on the talk today and share your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you very much, Nathan.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, well, great. Well, we're going to say hi to Alan here in a second. I'm moving him up from the green room. Hey, Alan, how are you?
I'm good, Nathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just talked to Henry about self-driving cars here. This was great.
Yeah, I was listening. It sounds fabulous.
Well, Henry, congratulations to you. You are our newest talk alumni. So any advice to Alan here after after being through the ringer that I put you through?
No, not at all, Alan. I'm super excited to hear what you have to say. I think just be comfortable. I'm sure you definitely are with speaking, having done a TED Talk.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a super cool thing to be on.
Yep. Good. You did a good job, Henry.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, you're welcome to stick around. Henry, I'm going to escort you over to the green room right now, which is just they call it the lobby, but one of my guests said the green room is such a nicer term for that. And here's what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to walk Alan and myself over to the green room. I'm going to put Alan back on here so that you end up on the right. And I have this weird little thing. I need to be on the left on my show for some reason. So we're going to do this little switcheroo, and then we'll get started here.
All right.
All right. Now, see what I mean? I'm on the left now. I just, maybe it's because I'm left-handed. I don't know.
To me, Nathan, you're right in the middle, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, are you seeing all three?
And no, I don't see Henry. I see me below you, and I see you in the middle.
Oh, that's interesting, because I get the side-by-side view. That's very interesting. So whatever floats our boat. I guess it's like the, politically incorrect thing about the 3 or 4 blind men and the elephant, and they're all describing something different, and it's all true.
Exactly.
So whatever they're showing us. All right. So Alan, unfortunately, as you may know, the bio cut off here in the middle of a title. So when I read your bio, I'm just practicing this. and just let me know what the title of the book that, that it cut off on, and then we'll get up and running here. So Jerry Lewis has said that Alan Klein, the world's only jolly-tologist, is a noble and vital force watching over the human condition. Klein is an award-winning professional speaker, TEDx presenter, and author of 26 books, including the bestseller, and this is where it cut off, The
Healing Power of Humor.
Okay, well, that was, I'm glad that it was about humor instead of, something more serious or tragic with all that. All right, so that's the bio right there. This is great, and oh my gosh! All right, any questions for me?
Not at all. I'm ready to go when you are.
All right, I'm ready as well. Our levels look great, so we're gonna get started here. Okay, so it was our thoughts and intentions create our reality, and I'm sorry, which TEDx was this, Alan?
Monte Vista High School.
High school. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just getting that in case I need it.
Cupertino, California.
Cupertino. Wow.
Yeah. Apple
Historic.
Country.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some famous parking garage or residential garages in that town. From what I've heard. I think they have posters of everybody's startup garage.
Right.
Posters of them now.
I didn't go in any, so I don't know. But.
Yeah. Well, good deal. All right, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Alan Klein. Alan, are you ready to talk?
I am always ready to talk. Yes.
Jerry Lewis has said that Alan Klein, the world's only jolly-tologist, is a noble and vital force watching over the human condition. Klein is an award-winning professional speaker, TEDx presenter, and author of 26 books, including the bestseller, The Healing Power of Humor. Alan Klein, welcome to the talk.
Great to be here.
Your talk is called Our Thoughts and Intentions Create Our Reality. And this is amazing to me because, I'm watching Seinfeld the other day, and I'm watching your Merv Griffin set design get dumpster hijacked by Kramer 20 or 30 years ago, and he sets it up in his apartment, and you designed the Merv Griffin set. This is amazing. Please take us behind the talk.
I did. Since I was 7 years old and my parents took me to a Broadway show, I wanted to be a scenic designer. I wanted to make those pretty pictures. And so I went back to school and I would take a shoebox, a cigar box, and I would make a diorama of the book that we were reading in the class. I was basically making a little stage set. So from that time on, I wanted to be a scenic designer. And then I finally, high school, college, I finally got into Yale Drama School, the most prestigious theater design school in the country at the time. It was a 3-year master's. And at the end of the first year, I was kicked out. I was told I had no talent. And I thought, it was my intention, it was my thinking to be a designer since I was 7 years old. How can you tell me I'm not a designer? So I went back to New York City. After a year or two, I got into the Scenic Design Union, very strict tests to do that. And I got a job at CBS Television where I designed Merv Griffin, Jackie Gleason, and some of you listeners may know the Captain Kangaroo Show.
Yeah, that would be me. Old Mr. Green Jeans and the whole lot of them. This is a little old school, but my gosh, powerful stuff. Now there's a Scenic Design Union in New York City with strict regulation guidelines and testing. Can you give us a little bit of backstory on that? That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, the test to get in the union takes over a month. And you get a project to take home and design it for a month. So you might get an opera, you might get a Broadway play. I got the opera Don Giovanni. And then you go for a whole weekend, whole day Saturday, whole day Sunday, and you get questions like, so what I designed basically was the costumes, the sets, and the lighting. And you get there on Saturday morning, and one of the questions is, well, the director doesn't like your set for the ballroom scene. You have an hour to redesign it.
So, well, this sounds like great fodder for some kind of reality show. This sounds like the Celebrity Apprentice or something like that. It's almost a different tilt on that. All apologies for bringing up the current administration, which some people don't want me to do. But back in the good old days when he was doing reality television show that wasn't really real life reality television show, these were epic, time compressed stress tests for people, and you were right in the middle of it.
Right there. And so you got a whole day of that, redoing your costumes, your lighting, additional questions, and then Sunday they gave you a little like a 8x10 picture, and then you had to reproduce it on a canvas that was like 8 feet by 10 feet. So and you did that all day. So
Wow.
Very stringent test, but I did get it. I failed the first time, got in the second time. And then I got that great job at CBS television. So my professor at Yale was a little bit off base. I had talent, and I worked at CBS for 10 years doing all their children's shows and all those other shows too.
Well, this is just incredible because I love how you started out with you said like a shoebox and some really basic materials and your history lesson or your homework assignment or whatever. And you would, as a hobby, do set design. And you were already building this world in your own brain and to a basic extent your outer world from a very young age. So when you hit that resistance, you didn't pack up your toys and go home and give up on life. You said to Yale University, hey, you're wrong. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pivot, and this is really uncomfortable, but I'm going to make this work. What a great lesson for us all.
And it was, nobody could tell me if I want to do something. Nobody could tell me I can't do it. Even the head of Yale Drama School.
Well, it's powerful because if we just looked at the title of your talk alone and didn't listen to the actual talk, didn't listen to this backstory, your title of your talk is called "Our Thoughts and Intentions Create Our Reality." And a lot of times in popular business psychology, we just think, just go and meditate and it causes the world to bow down at your feet and not give you any trouble or resistance. But you really mean this. Our thoughts and intentions do create our reality, because when you get, you unfortunately fail a test and get, booted out of the dream school, your thoughts and intentions, if you don't compromise them, still will ultimately create your reality. So in short, I'm happy that it's just great because this backstory is not one of, having a silver spoon in your mouth and everything going your way. It's determination. There's a grit and a tenaciousness that it belies this nice title of your talk. Love to hear you expound on that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know the expression be, do, have, but if you want to be anything, just imagine yourself being it. So since I was 7 years old in that theater production, looking at a Broadway show, I saw myself as a scenic designer. I told people I wanted to be a scenic designer, and they would look at me, 7 years and go, "What is that?" They didn't even know what it was, but I knew what I wanted to be. So be it and then do it. So I went to school. I learned how to do it. I did 5 years of summer stock, often doing 10 shows, 8 musicals and 2 plays in 10 weeks to learn my craft. And then to do, I was doing it. And then you have it. I became a scenic designer.
I love it. Hey, I mean, Jackie Gleason show, I've seen a little bit of that just because of some things that I've done in the past and some programs that I've put together. Captain Kangaroo, Merv Griffin show. Is there any kind of little secret design elements or little things that the casual eye would not pick up that maybe you put in there that you could tell us about, or anything that we wouldn't normally know about those sets?
Well, Captain Kangaroo, the set, I don't know, you probably don't remember it, but you can look online and there are pictures of it. I was inspired by a Tinker Toy because they're often spindles and little balls, and so the whole house, I called it Victorian Tinker Toy. It looked kind of like a Victorian house, but made out of kind of an enlarged Tinker Toy set.
I remember my Tinker Toys. I don't know about you, Talk Universe. Depending, if you're under the age of 35, you don't even know what we're talking about. I'm 43, so you know, you 40-year-olds, you know what a Tinker Toy is. This has been great. Any other? I mean, so the Tinker Toy, so the Captain Kangaroo set was like a Tinker Toy, or at least the house was. Any other little trivia that would be amazing for us to know?
Yeah, like as a designer, I not only did the backgrounds, but if Bunny Rabbit, people don't know what we're talking about here, some of them, but
well, you got to look up Captain Kangaroo on YouTube. It's up there.
If Bunny Rabbit was tricking Mr. Green Jeans into giving him some carrots, and he did a machine, and he would tell Mr. Green Jeans, press a button here, and all these carrots would come out. I was the one who had to design that machine. So I had to think like a child. I had to think, well, what would a child do? A child would go in the kitchen and get a strainer or pot or pan, and would go in the garage and get a box and maybe paint some things on it, might paste some things on it, might get some buttons to put on it. Just think like a child. And I think that really influenced my later life, like now when I'm playful and I'm into therapeutic humor. I think a lot of that, when I look back, was influenced by childlike thinking.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with set designer Alan Klein. We're talking about all of these wonderful old school sets that he designed. His talk is called Our Thoughts and Intentions Create Our Reality. And we're going to be back with Alan Klein in just a moment for the Blitz Round. And we are back with Alan Klein. It's time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask Alan a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Alan, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Great. So were you invited to speak or did you apply?
Well, that's an amazing thing, and it's why I chose that topic. In January, 2 years ago, I put on my bucket list that I wanted to do a TED Talk. In February, exactly a month later, I got an unsolicited email from the TED Talk people saying they're putting it together and they would like me to speak at it. And so I think they wanted me to do a program on humor because that's what I normally did. And I could have done that, but suddenly I had this passion, particularly since I created the TED Talk. You know, somebody asked me to do the TED Talk, how I created that just with my intention, that's what I wanted to really talk about. And particularly since it was a high school audience, I wanted to make them aware that, like what happened to me in Yale, don't let anyone ruin their day. Don't let anyone tell them they can't do something. And so I had the passion to share with them my new thinking, my new learning about how our thoughts and intentions help us create our reality. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And that's what I proposed to them, which they said I could go and do.
So you're in the industry. Are you a memorizer, a improviser, or a blender?
I'm a memorizer, but I've taken a number of improv classes. So because I think often people come up to me and say, Alan, you're really funny. And then when I look back at my program, it was the audience that was really funny. And what I did is I picked up on that.
Mm-hmm.
I improvised with what they were saying or what they were doing. And so they thought I was the funny one, but it was the audience that started all that. So it's kind of a blend, I think.
Yeah. Well, what's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Tip, tool, or technique. Well, what happened was this was amazing to me, because what happened was the people before me, the TED Talk people before me, they had us sit in the audience, and then when they introduced us, they came walking up on stage. And I thought, this is pretty boring, and I was getting pretty tense, and I needed to do something to lighten up. So they had a big TEDx sign on stage. So during the break, I went crouched behind the sign on my hands and knees. And when they introduced me, I popped up like a Jack in the Box. And I'm not sure anyone in the audience realized that, but I got it, and I start laughing, and it just set the whole tone for my talk. And I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, because I mean, I call that when you're sitting, line by line, seat by seat in a, and the person two down goes, and then the person next to you. It's like the piano recital effect, and it's not very fun. It's not very good on the nerves. So good for you for practicing what you preach. Yeah.
So you need to take charge. The tip would be take charge of the situation and make it work for you.
For sure. What was this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of the talk that you had to cut out?
Well, I didn't have to cut out anything, but what the painful part for me was we had a rehearsal in the morning, and I was on stage and all these bright lights, and I'm halfway through the talk, and I totally forget what I was going to say. Just totally blank. No idea what to say. And I finally got my stuff together and continued. But then I went outside and took a lot of deep breaths, and part of me thinking, why did I ever want to do this? This is nerve-wracking. But then I realized what was happening when I was rehearsing with these bright lights. I could not see the audience. I could not see who I was talking to. And I like to talk to people. I like to see their eyeballs. And so when I went on, I asked them, would you please turn up all the house lights so I can see who I'm speaking to? And that really changed everything to me. I remembered everything. I was more comfortable. I was able to interact with the audience better. And so, again, I took charge of the situation. I'm not sure that answered your question, but that was a highlight for me.
Yeah, well, and it's a great thing to be able to, without interrupting the protocol, dramatically, be able to ask for some things that are doable things to help you connect to the audience. That's the huge thing that you can do, Talk Universe, because Alan wanted to connect to people. He wanted to not connect with a light bulb. He wanted to connect with the people in the room, and he found different ways of doing that. He also found a way of jumping out from behind those giant letters to get himself riled up in the mood and make that powerful connection. So, other than what you've mentioned, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or before your talk, Alan?
Something strange.
Other than what you did. I mean, that may have answered the question right there. Did you preemptively do something unusual?
No, I think what happened was that was unusual is I started the talk and they did not put the house lights up. And so what went through my head, do I continue that way? Or do I stop and ask for the house lights up? And again, I thought, I've got to take charge. I don't care. I stopped and I said, please put all the house lights up. And then when we edited the video a bit, we took that out.
Yeah.
And so I realized that was a really smart move, because who knows, I might have forgotten what I was going to say in the middle again, as I did in rehearsal. And I didn't want that to happen.
For sure. Now, we've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Alan Klein. His talk is called Our Thoughts and Intentions Create Our Reality. And you got to watch this talk. You can do that by either typing it in, or if you want the easy way, go to bethetalk.com. We'll have it in our show notes page, and you will be able to connect with Alan. We'll have another link over there at alanklein.com, ALLENKLEIN, alanklein.com. And we'll be back with Alan Klein in just a moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with Alan Klein. It's time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is it?
Oh, I have to tell you.
Yeah, what's the final word of advice?
I thought you would ask me a question. I think the final word of advice is put out in the world what you want in your life, and you don't have to know. The advice is you don't have to know how that's going to happen. All you have to do is ask for it, put out your thoughts, your intention, do that every day, every single moment of the day. And if you do that, I can almost guarantee it will happen. And if it does happen, send me an email and do let me know.
Well, Alan Klein, thank you so much for carving out time in your day to come on the talk and share your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Well, I certainly did as well. That's a wrap. Thank you so much, sir. Let's bring Henry back here. We're going to find out if Henry approves.
Hi, Henry.
Hey, that was good.
All right, Henry, have you even heard of Captain Kangaroo? Do you know what we're talking about here, buddy?
No, I've not.
Well, you're gonna have to watch it, man. There's some good television. He had a distinctive hairstyle. I will say that. Captain Kangaroo, man.
Yeah.
You want a good hairstyle that's gonna stand out. You might want to check out his hairstyle, Henry.
That's great. And Alan, I love the story about you putting the TED Talk on your bucket list in January and getting the invite in February. That's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, the intention. Power of intention.
Yeah. Really powerful for sure. Well, good. Well, hey, this is still live here. I'm going to end the broadcast now. Everybody, if you're a fan of Captain Kangaroo or Seinfeld or the Merv Griffin Show or the Jackie Gleason Show, we want you to wiggle your finger over the share button to help spread the message. And if you work for the highway department or you're an engineer and you're really passionate about what's coming down the pike and you want to share Henry's talk immediately so that people cannot be freaked out by this amazing technology, just wiggle your finger over the share button and help broadcast these amazing messages. Their talks are out. It's amazing. And it's shareable right now. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I am